Marcus Chun sat in the back corner of the Galactic Academy's survival training classroom, his dark eyes quietly observing as his classmates boasted about their homeworlds. The Zentarian prince flexed his forearms while describing the crystal caves of his planet. The vegan ambassador's daughter fluttered her translucent wings as she spoke of floating through methane clouds. Even the rock-like Golian student rumbled about surviving in molten lava flows. None of them paid attention to the small human in worn Earth Standard clothing. Professor Kithara, a towering insectoid with compound eyes that reflected rainbow patterns, clicked her mandibles for attention. Today we begin the Death World Survival Examination. Each of you will be transported to a randomly selected Death World for 72 standard hours. Survival gear will be minimal. This test determines your advancement to senior xenobiology studies. The classroom buzzed with nervous energy. Death worlds were classified as planets so hostile that less than 5% of known sapient species could survive on their surface for more than a day. Most students had never even seen recordings from such places. The first destination has been selected, Professor Kithara announced, her voice carrying an odd note of what almost sounded like sympathy. Classification: Death World Sigma 7. Designation: Terra. Marcus felt every eye in the room turn toward him. His classmates' expressions ranged from pity to horror. Terra Earth, humanity's homeworld, was legendary throughout the galaxy as one of the most brutally hostile planets ever discovered. It was the measuring stick by which other death worlds were classified. The irony is not lost on me, Professor Kithara continued, that our human student will be tested on his own homeworld. However, the examination protocols are clear no exceptions. Zixtar, the Zentarian prince, laughed with all four of his mouths. At least the human won't be completely lost. Though I doubt that scrawny frames survive much of anything challenging back home. Marcus said nothing. He never did. The transport chamber hummed to life, and within moments, Marcus found himself standing in what his enhanced HUD identified as the Amazon rainforest, Brazil sector, Earth. The humidity hit him like a warm, wet blanket. The air thrummed with insect activity, and somewhere in the distance, he could hear the deep roar of a jaguar. His classmates materialized around him in shimmering columns of light, each equipped with basic survival gear, water purification tablets, emergency rations, shelter material, and a distress beacon for life-threatening situations. The vegan student, Lirale, immediately activated her beacon. The air was too thick, too heavy with moisture for her delicate respiratory system. She vanished in another column of light. Gorlian Crom lasted 3 hours before the humidity and organic acids in the environment began corroding his mineral-based biology. His beacon triggered automatically DOT by the end of the first day. Only Marcus and Zixtar remained. The Zentarian prince had initially seemed confident, using his 4 arms to build elaborate shelters and his enhanced strength to forge through the underbrush. But the constant pressure of Earth's gravity, nearly twice what he was accustomed to, was wearing him down. Mosquitoes swarmed him relentlessly, carrying diseases his immune system had never encountered. The food sources he identified as safe were actually mildly toxic to his physiology. Marcus, meanwhile, moved through the jungle like he belonged there. He wove palm fronds into watertight containers. He identified edible fruits and roots that even the jungle's native inhabitants would find safely nutritious. When it rained a torrential downpour that would have been classified as a severe weather event on most worlds, he simply adjusted his shelter and continued working. On the second night, Zixtar confronted him as they sheltered in a massive cecropia tree. How? The prince demanded, his translator struggling with his exhausted whispers. How are you not dead? This place is impossible. The gravity alone should be crushing you, and you're smaller than any of us. Marcus looked up from the fish trap he was weaving from vine fibers. For the first time in the 2 years they'd attended classes together, he spoke directly to his classmate. This isn't a death world to me, he said quietly. This is just ... home, a mile part of home. Mild? Zixtar's compound eyes widen. The atmospheric pressure variations are lethal. The biological diversity indicates millions of competing, deadly organisms. The weather patterns are chaotic. The gravity is normal, Marcus interrupted. The air is clean and breathable. The water is fresh and abundant. There are no radiation storms, no acidic atmosphere, no tectonic instability in this region. He paused, considering. My grandmother lived in a place like this for 60 years. She called it peaceful. The next morning, Zixtar triggered his. Beacon. Marcus spent the remaining day alone, not surviving, thriving. He caught fish, harvested fruits, and even managed to observe a family of jaguars from a respectful distance. When the extraction beam finally came for him, he was actually disappointed to leave. Back in the classroom, Professor Kithera's mandibles clicked in. What Marcus had learned was her species' equivalent of amazement. In 30 years of teaching, she announced to the reassembled class, I have never seen a student not just survive, but flourish on a death world. Her compound eyes focused on Marcus. Mr. Chun, your performance was illuminating. Zixtar, still recovering in the medical bay via hologram, spoke up weakly. How is this possible? How does humanity survive on such a world? Marcus stood slowly, feeling the weight of attention he'd avoided for so long. But now he understood something about himself, about his species, that he'd never quite grasped before. We don't just survive it, he said, his voice carrying a quiet confidence that hadn't been there before. We evolved from it. Every challenge you faced in those 3 days to gravity, the predators, the diseases, the weather, those aren't obstacles to us. They're just Tuesday. He looked around the room at his classmates' beings from worlds with single biomes, stable weather, and carefully balanced ecosystems. You're all incredibly adapted to your environments, he continued. But your environments are predictable, stable, safe. He paused. Earth never let us get comfortable. It made us generalists, adaptable, stubborn. Professor Kithera's voice carried a note of respect. Indeed, it appears we have learned something valuable today. Sometimes, the quiet ones have simply been shaped by forces the rest of us cannot imagine. Marcus sat back down, but this time, he didn't choose the corner seat. For the first time since arriving at the academy, he realized he had nothing to hide from Dot after all. He was from Earth. Everything else was easy mode.